screen here because this is going to YouTube, and I think I figured out how to do this the right way. So welcome everyone to the Airbnb Automated Club. Just like Airbnb Automated on YouTube, you are going to be listening to some moderators talk about a super fun conversation today. We're talking about failure, and all of us have. I mean, it's pretty impossible for humans not to fail at some point in their life or constantly in their life, right? So my name is Sean Rakidzich. You know me from the YouTube channel. We are recording this and streaming live to YouTube right now, over 120,000 subscribers. So if you have something you'd like to share during this talk, you've got kind of a platform to share it, not just here on Clubhouse. I'd like to introduce our moderators by asking a question. I feel like this is a fun way just to kind of get to giving value while also interweaving who you're talking to. Actually, you know, we're gonna start with Mac, because I know Mac has got an answer to this, and then we'll go Norman and then Noble. Mac, feel free to introduce yourself and tell me about a time as a professional where you were looking at a problem or some adversity and you thought to yourself, I'm not going to make it.
Good question and good topic. Yeah, it's been a really dark year with the COVID in our business industry for me more than some others. So, you know, I've shared that in masterminds and I think in Clubhouse, and I guess it kind of comes out when I chat with people. So, but anyway, I'm from Seattle, and I scaled at a time when there were no regulations in Seattle, making it extremely easy. And I had no YouTube channel to kind of like watch and get some of these ideas. I just try to reverse engineer everything I could by watching another operator scale their company by 5 units when they were starting out. So that's what got me motivated to start. So I essentially go to every single property I saw them opening up at these units at, and I would get units there and set up my units, and then eventually I would, you know, take over their units because they didn't get renewed. And I learned that, you know, like the relationships were extremely important. So as I was getting these leases back, you know, 2015, 2016, 2017, growing, there were no talks about regulations. It was kind of like, this can never happen here. Like, it was kind of just like a fan, like, it's just all talk. I didn't take it seriously. So I kept growing, but we were in buildings where these corporate housing companies were, and I kind of realized that this is a little bit easier. I should integrate this into my business by working directly with companies. So we worked with like Gables Corporate Housing 1 year. We then worked with Oakwood Corporate Housing the next year, where we had like offered 90 units for their contract. And then that was great. Like they had a contract with Facebook. And that same year is the year I had my daughter, Sophia. And so it was like, well, when she was born, I was basically on vacation, essentially, like, because Facebook was occupying our units, I could really focus on like having my daughter. And that was like just the best thing. I'm like, I don't think I want to go back to doing Airbnb again. And then next thing you know, like Seattle is kind of passing this bill, and it basically passed in that year, and that really put me in a dark place. Like, how am I going to pivot out of this? I didn't know any other operators going through that. I joined a mastermind, the STR Legends mastermind, to think that it might be able to help me. And it was helpful because I didn't know anyone that was going through it. I didn't know Sean, Noble, or Norman, or anyone else. So that really allowed me to share my fears. But it was kind of confusing because everyone's talking about scaling and no one was talking about what they're going to do to get through regulations, which was very, like, I was like, oh, fuck, like, I can't even relate to anybody right now. Everyone's saying they want to add 100 units, you know, like this year, and blah, blah, blah. So it's just like, is anyone doing anything legitimately to like kind of figure out how to keep your units or not? Like, is there a workaround to this? And I couldn't figure it out. So, you know, I did figure out some strategies from some people like Anton Zillerberg, who owns AutoHost, you know, about some techniques I don't need to go into. But anyway, I essentially, you know, had to do the hard part, move out of units, not a lot of fun. I'd much rather be moving into units, adding inventory. So that was very challenging. Getting rid of units, not knowing if the city's gonna like track down me in any way. I couldn't create a YouTube channel like you, Sean, because of this reason. You know, like, I don't want to expose my my business. So anyway, that's the strategy I took. I wound down. I was trying to do these corporate housing deals as much as possible by working with like Oakwood and a couple other companies. And then, you know, that lasted, I went from 100 down to about 45 units in that time frame of 2019. And then COVID happened, and I'm like, how am I going to survive this? Because all of our bookings just got wiped out. This was in March, and we weren't sure if interns were going to come this summer. That was the model we were banking on. So it was kind of like, how are we going to survive this? And we had leases, where the prices kept increasing every month for the last, or not every month, but every year. So we had these extremely high lease prices, like $2,600 on average for one bedroom unit. So that was difficult. I had to get rid of those units that we couldn't keep, obviously, and then keep the ones we got grandfathered in on. I had to renegotiate with the landlords. That was a pain in my ass times like a billion, because I thought we were closer than that. So I had to get rid of almost all the units. And now that was a very dark period for us. So, because like my mom's in the company, I had to lay off 4 people, like my best employee, who actually I'm now hiring back on because we got some PPP money, 2 rounds of it. So now I'm essentially like rebuilding, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in the space. But yeah, that was a very difficult 2 years of decommissioning 100 units. So it was not fun, but I think there's not many people who can tell that story. And so I'm kind of like optimistic that I can like figure it out with you guys and keep going and rebuilding.
Yeah, and your story is completely like unique in a way that some people, we go through failure where we have a moment where we fail, right? We make a bad decision and then we've got to deal with it for like however long it unwinds, you know? Like you bought the wrong car and then you end up in debt, or you started dating the wrong person and you have to unwind that, or you said something you wish you could take back, right? We fail in like moments, but you ended up in this 2-year-long like downward spiral that was largely out of your control, right? Because first it was regulations, and so as you have less and less units, I mean, it's probably human nature to constantly grow. So having to scale down feels like a failure every day that you have less units than you used to have, because we all have this like peak mentality. And then you go from regulations to COVID, and your pivot. You pivoted into a brick wall with COVID because you're relying on business travelers and interns, and then everybody goes work remote. Then like you basically pivoted into a market that's evaporating because of COVID. That's hard, right? So
and yeah, I thank you for relating, because it's like you look at Stay Alfred, you know, during COVID, and you look at the other company, Domicile, they got VC money and they're not getting bailed out. I'm like, where is this going? You know, like, I don't want to pull out of my savings account to bail this company out. I refuse to pay the landlords if I owe any rent, like by pulling money out of my savings that I've spent the last 4 years bootstrapping and like, you know, accumulating, paying myself on. It took me 3 years to pay myself. So in 2018 was the first year I did pay myself. And I'm like, I'm not going to re-dip back into this to bail this company out. Like, whatever happens, we have no idea what's going to happen. So that's essentially like, I feel like that's behind me. So that's kind of the hopefully the you know, this doesn't go backwards in any way, but I'm excited to be here. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Sean.
Yeah. So as we go through this clubhouse room, guys, we're going to be talking about the mental fortitude of getting through failure and fear and kind of working through the fog of it. And like Eric just told you, he's got a couple-year-long trudge through just some BS, right? That nobody should ever really have to go through, but adversity is life. So I'm sure, you know, Mac's going to have like a bunch to say. So in order, we're going to try to keep this in order, because I did say Norman and then Noble, and then Paulina is a friend of mine that actually made here on Clubhouse. She's an expert in media. She's not a short-term rental operator, but any expert who's ever climbed to the top of their ladder has had to deal with adversity. So so Paulina and Eric actually is also a short-term rental operator and owns another company. He loves his bourbon, by the way, backstory. And Eric and Pavlina, just so you know, we're introducing our moderators by asking them a question. And of course, I'm gonna ask Norman the same question, then Noble, and then you two, which is, recall a time and just kind of give us a little context of a time of your life where, like as a professional, where you were going through something, like you had adversity, a new hurdle hit, like in Mac's case, like regulation changes, a time where you said to yourself in your head, I'm not going to make it. So Norman, floor is yours.
So I guess I'll go really far back to like when I was new to like short-term rentals and everything. So when I first had moved to Houston from New Jersey, I didn't really know anybody. So I didn't really know anybody at the time. So I was kind of just like going to different places, just networking, seeing who I could meet. And I had actually met somebody, and we actually had a whole bunch of like interests and whatnot. Like we were both interested in crypto at the time, but we also had a real estate interest. And he was telling me about how he was doing short-term rentals out here in Houston. And I had been familiar with it in New Jersey, but I had been familiar with it in New Jersey, but it had never really taken off in Jersey. So I was thinking, okay, this is a great opportunity to do this in Houston and have it take off. So what ended up happening was, because we kind of got cool over the course of a couple of months, I kind of just took his word for the data that he was giving me on Houston. But so basically, I had market research. I was completely green to everything, and what ended up happening was I had gotten into a lease that like wasn't actually a corporate lease. I didn't actually read the paperwork, and so. Not the end of the world, but basically what was happening after that was like as time went by, we had agreed that like we would basically split everything down the middle, and as I got to know the person more and more, I started realizing that like, my friend actually has like, he's not my friend anymore obviously, but like my friend actually has like really bad habits. Like he was addicted to, and I don't know how deep I want to go with this, but he had a drug addiction. Like he was addicted to like prescription pills and stuff like that. And so like I didn't see that at first because like he was just extremely functional. But then as like time went by, like I could see those habits like start to come out, and there would be days where like he had access to the account. So this is before co-hosting even came out. So like he had access to the account, and like I didn't have access to the account. So there would be days when like he'd be relapsing or whatever, and he'd just be gone for a day. And so like, long story short, what ended up happening was like, I somehow got caught up in that because he somehow convinced me that like, yeah, like dude, like if you do this stuff, like you'll be able to work forever. Like at the time I was like a super workaholic. So like I got caught up in that, and like I got addicted to it. I lost a whole bunch of weight, and the property was doing super terrible. And to make matters worse, like it wasn't even a corporate lease, and it was in my personal name, not even the name of my LLC. So basically, I had lost a whole bunch of weight because like now like my lifestyle had completely done a 180. I was basically living like paycheck to paycheck because like I was just blowing all my money paying rent on a property that wasn't even making money, on top of paying rent on a property that I had already lived in. So like I was basically broke, and like and I wasn't even looking at my bank account. Like I was just so embarrassed. So like one day, like I looked and I only had like $40 left. I'm like, I can't pay rent on anything. So like I had to like basically like figure something out. So like I really thought I was gonna fail in that situation. But what I ended up doing was like I had to cut my friend off, obviously, because like literally like he had access to everything and I couldn't even run the property. So I had to cut access off to him from getting to the property. I had to get the property delisted. I had to relist the property on my account, and then it turns out that like the property wasn't even like furnished well, so like it wouldn't even command like the price that he told me it was gonna get. So basically like this thing was set up to lose money from the jump. And then like to make matters worse, right? I said I only had like $43 in my bank account, and like the place only had like one TV and the furniture was trash. So I was like, dude, like, I don't know how I'm going to get better furniture in here, but like, I only have like $43 and I got to figure it out. So I think I stayed up for like 2 days straight, and I still have my day job, mind you. I stayed up for 2 days straight, just like searching Facebook, just searching like for people who had furniture that they were like getting rid of. And like, I found a guy who had like some ottomans that he was getting rid of. I was going to add it to the living room. And so like I spent like $20 on the ottomans, but when I went to the guy's house, I saw that he had a TV just on the ground in the corner. I was like, yo, what are you doing with that TV, man? He was like, nothing, you can have it. So boom, that's how I got a 55-inch TV for free. Granted, like the TV, like it wasn't cracked or anything like that, but like it did have some like minor damage, but it worked at the time. Like I was like 22, Like, I needed to make this thing work, and I was broke, and I wasn't going back to Jersey. So I got the TV, I got ottomans, and then like with the rest of the money, I was able to like get a mix of free furniture, and then I think I spent the rest on like lights and something like that. So like I was able to turn the place from like a crappy like 1-bedroom apartment in like downtown Houston to like a semi-decent apartment that was at least able to like break even in some months, like give me a couple $100 on rent, on top of rent, while I was able to stack my bread and just like ride it undercover until I could get out of the deal. But like after that whole scenario, like definitely taught me like, yo, make sure you're doing research on anything. Like always read like paperwork. Like even when like, you know, property managers or people just give me leases, they always ask me like, hey, why do you take so long to sign this? Because I'm like, dude, I read every single word inside that lease. If there's wording I don't like I make sure like we get an addendum, like definitely. And then it also just taught me the importance of just like studying the market. Like, okay, like, yeah, you were able to get $150 a night last year, but like, what can you do in this kind of market, especially with COVID? Like, just being able to like do all that stuff. So that's my time about when I almost failed and didn't know what I was going to do and how I got out of it.
Man, good fight, dude. I could only imagine, like, first off, I don't have business partners to begin with because I don't trust people like that. I'll tell that story in a bit, but I could only imagine having a business partner lie to you, set you up for failure, have a drug addiction, you got to fight through that whole thing. So yours was like, well, yours was one of those spike situations, like, oh, I've got to make a big decision now, and then you had to fight your way out of that hole, which is a different type of failure than Eric's, right? Eric's is this long downward trudge where he just knows it's going to get worse, but he's got to show up every day. You like light at the end of the tunnel, but you're like, it's the obstacle's bigger than me. I don't even know how I'm going to solve it. This is going to get really fun, guys. This is going to get super fun because as you're going to notice, our failures are wildly different in nature, and mine might not even be the coolest story yet. I have a feeling this is going to get sick. So, Noble, you're next. Of course, same question. We're introducing our moderators with the question. Tell us about a time as a professional that you were up against some adversity, situation you went through, and you thought to yourself, I'm not going to make it.
Sure thing, Sean. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about, I know all of us have experienced multiple failures, but I'd like to talk about a failed opportunity, right? So
yeah,
an opportunity that ended, didn't end well. So I think 2018, I believe it was, we were looking at late 2018, we were looking at an opportunity in Waco, Texas. And so for those who are familiar with the TV show, HGTV's Chip and Joanna Gaines show that's on the network, we were looking at a property. Their show is called Fixer Upper on HGTV, but we were looking at a property, a multifamily property that was in the vicinity of their Magnolia headquarters. So where their big store is, and where, close to their restaurant there in Waco, Texas, and within walking distance, literally like next door, right? So we're looking at this multifamily property. It was an off-market opportunity, and a business partner and I, he's a syndicator. This deal was brought to him, like I said, off market by a broker. And so we started to run numbers on this property. Waco is considered probably a secondary or even tertiary market, but Baylor University is there. Then you had Magnolia, which is the Chip and Joanna Gaines operation there. And so they have a lot of movement in and out of Waco. And so we were looking at a property to position ourselves to leverage both the Magnolia headquarters as well as the university there. And so we got heavily involved in this project. We had some other real estate investors that were brought into the deal, and they were obviously from out of state. There was a family office that was the major player in the deal, and it was putting up a lot of the upfront capital to take this deal down. I believe this was a 90-something unit property, and So it had progressed to the point to where the LOI had been written, so the letter of intent had been written. We were in the phase of doing the due diligence. There was a 60-day clause for due diligence to close on this property. We were going to take out of those 92 units, because it was a kind of a hybrid arrangement, we were going to take like a third of them, I believe, and dedicate them solely for short-term rentals. And the other remainder of the property would operate as traditional multifamily. Okay. And then on top of that, there was office and commercial space underneath. So this was floors 2, 3, and underneath, some of which was vacant. So there were some value add opportunities. So long story short, we ended up through some backdoor channels, which I can't really disclose, but we ended up in a preliminary conversation with the team with Chip and Joanna Gaines' team. And we were working on a deal at the time to bring them in on the design side of a third of these units that would be used as STRs. So this had a huge potential, huge opportunity. They knew what we were trying to do with the space. We were going to also engage them on coming in on the design part of the rooftop deck, which would include a pool, some lounge space, so on and so forth. But that deck would have overlooked their Magnolia property. Okay, so it's a very cool deal. So long story short, got to the underwriters that were, kind of going to be, bringing the loan funds basically to the deal, and they were questioning the, they had some concerns and some questions. I'll just say that. Long story short, at the 11th hour, after we were, I think in the last week of our 60 days of due diligence, the family office pulls out. So myself, my business partner, there was 6 figures plus of lost money in escrow. That it was painful, obviously, but the deal in and of itself, which was huge and was extremely significant opportunity, was lost. And so that was a huge opportunity that was a failure. I talk about it in the Hospitality Cash Flow podcast, probably in a little bit more detail. But nevertheless, there's still opportunity in Waco, which we capitalize on, just not at that specific building. But yeah, that's just another example of a potential win that turned into a failure.
Dang. So yours was like, I'm going to make millions, and then it turned into a $100,000 plus loss, just overnight.
Correct.
Dang, that does suck. That sucks a lot. Yeah, loss of what could be a ton of money, loss of opportunity, I feel like digests a bit differently than that slow pain of just being in a bad situation. So we're going to dive into that more too on this, because ultimately the goal of this room is to talk about how these failures have essentially and materially changed the moderators up at the top here. Because let me give you all context, those of you in the audience, all of us are successful. All of us who are talking to you right now, we've made it to some degree, right? We are still dealing with failures to some degree as well, but we're here fighting, right? And we can tell you that you get through them. So we have next Pavlina, and then Eric, and then Jay Massey, who's also got a killer success story, and I bet there's some failure woven in there. And then Heather. Me and Heather, we've been in a couple rooms together here. She's also an operator in the short-term rental space. Of course, the format is introduce yourself by telling us a time where professionally you went through something and you said to yourself, I'm not going to make it. Pavlina first, Eric second, and then Jay, you're third. Go for it.
Sean, thank you for the invitation. So I'm a mentor for entrepreneurs on how to promote their business online. I'm a personal branding expert, seminar organizer, and speaker, and yeah, probably I will become an Airbnb Automated host at some stage, because I live on a holiday island, so it just makes sense for me. All my neighborhood around me has Airbnbs. I live in a vacation place, so I'm here to learn as well. So a failure, it's definitely part of the journey of entrepreneurship, and especially getting up from failure. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. So I will share a story that came to my mind today because of Facebook memories. I posted something on 9th of April 2014 about something that happened to me. So I remembered that story and how bad I was feeling at that time, and how it turned out to be a very good thing for me, a very good experience to learn, even though I had a crappy year. So 2011, I started a seminars company, and I wanted to work with international speakers, very well-known speakers, and I did start working with very big speakers in personal development, like Dr. John DeMartini. I don't know if you've heard of him. I created a really good name for myself, and I was approached by a speaker from Australia who was half Greek like me, and he convinced me to start working together, and he was promoting himself as a millionaire and a lot of other things, and he was speaking internationally at many events, so he had credibility, and we started organizing events together for a couple of years, and I got to trust him and learn from him, and I thought we were going to become business partners. He wanted to become business partners because he was really happy with what I was doing. However, after running an event in Cyprus and Greece, it was a seminar, he brought with him, he chose guest speakers that sold certain mentoring programs, coaching products to clients. By the way, at the time, I wasn't a speaker myself. I was just a seminar organizer. At that time, I did have this dreamed vision that I would create my own programs. So he brought a couple of guest speakers with him, and actually both of them turned out to be scammers, which means our clients bought the products, but they disappeared. They didn't deliver. So I was left with, around 30 clients calling me, complaining about the products they sold. So I tried to talk with him, and I realized that he wasn't paying attention. He didn't care. I said, we have to refund them. They're not getting what they paid for. I'm responsible. I'm the seminar organizer. And this guy is promoting himself as a multimillionaire. And I was like, and he was like, no, I can't do anything about it. Like, he was totally unsupportive. So I was willing to refund my commission because I had paid all that money to the speakers, the scammers he brought. So I was trying to resolve it. I was trying to convince him to at least refund his commission. Nothing. He was like a total scam. If he was a real millionaire, he would have refunded at least his commission. I refunded mine, and I'm just the person who started from scratch, from nothing. I didn't have the money, actually. I was under. And I started coaching the clients myself. I had no other way to help them than give them coaching. I ended that collaboration. I found out more things about him. He had done it to other promoters around the world. Actually, I ended that collaboration at that time. I recently found out other people kept collaborating with him, didn't see the red flags, and now he owes a lot of money to a lot of people. Other people that approached me and let me know that I basically dodged the bullet. I did lose a lot of money. I had to work very hard to recover. However, within a year, my lesson from that, within a couple of months, another person showed up. Within a year, I had amazing mentors. Because the space was created, other people came into my life who became really, really amazing mentors and helped me grow really big. And the decision I made at the time was, I don't want to depend on other speakers delivering mentoring programs and selling their stuff and then not delivering. So I'm going to become the mentor and coach myself, and I'm going to create my own program, and everyone is going to be happy. So that's what made me create my own programs and not depend on other speakers and selling other people's products. And I have my own academy now. I never had a refund, and no good. I'm happy client. I deliver a great experience, and I know that I don't have to depend on other people, other companies delivering products. I have my own automated, funnels, products. I don't even need to run seminars anymore. I made many decisions at that time which were excellent for my life, and letting this bad person go from my life, even though I lost a lot of money, I really got clear on the kind of people I wanted to have around me. It was a really bad year for me because I was letting a lot of people go at that time. I had a bad breakup, and then this guy did that to me, and then it was like people who came as volunteers at my events. They were approaching him indirectly to do a business collaboration with him. He didn't tell me. It was a mess. But out of all of that, I sat down and got very clear on the type of collaborations I wanted to have, the type of people I wanted to have in my life, and within a year, my whole life, my relationships had transformed. I had new mentors who actually came into my life and just wanted to mentor me, like really, truly successful people. So yes. So I think the lesson is always look for the lesson. What can I learn? How can I grow? Set new intentions, and we become so much smarter. So now I can see through that stuff so much faster, easier, immediately, almost, when these kind of people show up. So experience makes us stronger in business because we can see through, let's say, the BS, which I couldn't see through at the time, was too innocent. But it's these things that happen to make you a real business owner, a real entrepreneur, and then you can move on faster and make good decisions. So, Pavlina, Babaluka, this was my story. I hope it was helpful to somebody. I hope it resonated. Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, that was awesome. I could feel the energy change when you started talking about the growth and the opportunity that came from your adversity. And yeah, you had a really loud experience with somebody defrauding you into trusting them. And if it wasn't for that really, really loud, painful experience, your judgment of character might not have changed. So this has probably been a big growth for you, having to, through very terrible experience, learn that you just can't trust people necessarily, and to keep your circle tighter. So thank you for sharing. That was awesome. Eric, so you know the question, have you ever looked at a bottle of bourbon so large that you said to yourself, I'm not gonna make it?
Sorry, Sean, can you say that again real quick?
Oh, I was just talking about your bourbon company. So we're introducing all the moderators up here by asking them the question, professionally speaking, has there ever been, can you recall a time in your life where you had an adversity or a challenge, something just jumped in your way and it was so big or so daunting or so foreign that you said to yourself, I'm not gonna make it?
Hell yeah, like yesterday I can recall it.
Nice.
Essentially, sorry. Well, I mean, my background is I was classically trained to be a civil engineer. So I have a master's in civil and environmental engineering. So I worked for developers as well as construction companies for about 20 years. And one of the things was my greatest failure was probably my best success too, because it just kind of taught me the mindset that I kind of currently operate under. Basically, I worked for a small, it was a $50 million industrial construction company, and we had taken it to $200 million a year. And essentially, I came up with an idea that turned into a $400 million contract. Went through the whole proposal process, shepherded everything through with the customer as well as with the owner of the business, along with his entourage. Essentially, we flew back on an airplane after we got the $400 million contract. He told me how he was going to get a larger jet. Is really going to change the life of his kids, because I guess they could only fly in a regular jet as opposed to a larger jet. So it was just kind of disheartening to hear all these stories and hear the entourage celebrating it. And then slowly I kind of felt my way being whittled out of the contract. And so after about 6 months, there was nothing as far as any kind of recognition. However, the larger, executives kind of took over the whole thing, which was basically my idea. And essentially, for I don't know if it was Christmas, might have been I don't know, it was sometime around Christmas, they sent me a letter. And it was like a total congratulations for such a great accomplishment. And they gave me a $200 Ruth Chris gift card. And so I framed that Ruth Chris gift card and basically showed up to the work, or to my office, like that guy at the office every day. I was used to pulling all-nighters, doing all kinds of crazy stuff to get these really big contracts. And I just kind of switched my mindset to where I'm not going to put up with this. and I'm going to focus my attention on short-term rentals, and that's where I'm at today. So,
Dang.
it's
What a betrayal. Ouch. Man, that's it's like.
I'm also glad that I got to talk before Jay, because Jay really has, a story to tell. So I appreciate, bringing me up here, and I appreciate everybody on stage. I recognize everybody, and it's good to see everyone again.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that Ruth Chris gift card sounds like an insult. I can't believe they did that to you. Crazy. Jay, welcome to the room. It's always great to speak with you. Jay's been hustling here on Clubhouse. He's got his whole game down. I'm wondering what background music he might have for us right now. But same question, Jay. Welcome, and introduce yourself by letting us know a time in your life where you were looking at a challenge that was apparently too great at the moment. So you said to yourself, "I'm not going to make it."
You're right. So I will say the following: there's no background music. Sorry.
Oh. Okay.
And well, there's so many that the problem. I almost said pick a year that'll at least narrow it down for me, and I can go, okay, yeah, that one. But I will tell you probably one of the ones where I panicked the absolute most was we had just bought a 72-unit building for $60,000. I was feeling great. I was actually on my way to Disneyland, literally, because I live in Southern California. Not because of that, but because I live in Southern California. And as I'm driving, my property manager picks up, calls me and says, "Just so you know," which that never starts a good conversation. "Just so you know, the mayor is standing on the property right now, announcing a lawsuit with the city attorney. He's standing on your property. It's on television, and they're starting with you." I had owned the property not even 3 weeks, and they were announcing a lawsuit. Now, being sued is one thing. Being sued by a city, completely different. Really long story short, we became friends, and over time, it took many months, court appearances, flying out from California, all of that. And eventually, it landed us a 182-unit complex. But at the end of the day, part of the problem was that there was just no communication, literally no communication. And if you want to ever experience absolute frightening thoughts, be sued by an entity that doesn't have to make a profit. Because that means this could take a while, and you've got to defend yourself no matter what. Fortunately, the judge looked up our record in the city, saw that we had already done millions and millions of dollars worth of business, and actually thanked me for showing up, because the local investors didn't. But the California scourge that they were suddenly trying to get rid of actually did.
That's awesome. And so you became friends with the whole entire city because you showed up to a private party at the courthouse.
I know, right? It's not cool.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. You did, and that's the other thing. Just always remember, if you're going to be involved in real estate, the larger you get, real estate and politics are connected at every level, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me about this. The president of our island here in Cyprus, they sell visas for, through €2 million properties. Anyway, it's another story, and all the politicians are involved in this. That's how they make money.
Yeah, I could imagine. I'm doing some stuff in Mexico City, and they will sit on permits for years, even though it shouldn't take that long. And you call to ask about your permit, they're like, "Oh yeah, show up with $50,000 cash, and I will hand you your permit." So I could just imagine. That's wild. Thank you for sharing that, Jay. This is a good story, and I know you have plenty more to share. Since we are dealing with failure, and you're exposed to it. You're constantly exposed to different business ventures, cell phone towers, and stuff. We'll get into it, and so I'm sure failure is probably one of your best friends, and that's kind of the point of this. Heather, last but not least, feel free to introduce yourself to the world And share a time where you felt this the same, where something was too great and you said to yourself, I'm not going to make it.
Hey guys, okay, it's Heather Brown with Staylux Luxury Vacation Homes out of Park City, Utah. So much of everyone else's story has touched a certain part of like my heart and my emotions, and I'll be honest with you, when I share these kinds of stories, I do feel emotional, and I'm sure maybe you guys do too. I'm just a very emotional person, you know, I'm kind of an empath by nature, but so many of these things touch a heartstring for me. I'm originally from South Texas and then moved to Louisiana to marry my second husband. Well, so that's kind of where my story begins, is when we went to Louisiana. I don't know how many of you have been to Louisiana, but I don't think anyone ever moves there by choice. And it was an interesting experience for me, but the way that it sort of ended is that in August of 2016, I don't know how many of you will remember, but Baton Rouge went underwater. It was the year before Harvey. And we were surrounded by 20 feet of water in our tiny home. We were in the middle of renovating a tiny home, and we were surrounded by water. It was as if we were on a houseboat. And we were watching all of our neighbors' homes go underwater, and my car was a total loss, and I was at the time working for a construction company, and the office went underwater. Our storage unit went underwater. We lost pretty much everything, and I ended up having to look at Bo and say, hey, listen, this isn't gonna work. We've got to figure something else out. And so we realized that his mother lived here in Utah, and she lives in a traditional split level that you see all over the Salt Lake Valley. And so I asked him to place a call, and he did. And so from there, we packed up just a little pool behind U-Haul and drove our two vehicles from Louisiana to Utah, and had no idea what we were going to do. So in that moment, that was the first moment of just like, I just don't know if I can do this, you know, as you're watching your life go basically float away. And so we got here, and then we get involved with a vacation rental company here in Park City, Utah. And I'm not going to name names, obviously, that would be very unfair, but we got involved with a vacation rental company, and I was hired as a content writer. That was what I was hired for. Well, that fairly quickly changed, and my pay was kind of pennies at the time, because the position was created for me out of nothing, and they just weren't expecting to pay very well for a content writer. So 2.5 years in, we see the writing, well, along the way we start seeing the writing on the wall that something's going on in the higher ups of this company. And it turned out that what had happened was that the two business partners had gotten into a 50-50 partnership, which, as we all know, that never really ends very well if there's not good relationships, because nobody ends up with a final say in what's going on. So it went from bad to worse, and one of the partners came to us and explained what was going on. By this time, I was so overworked. I was averaging somewhere around 70 to 80 hours a week and getting paid pennies still, because by that time, I was running the entire back office. It was just me and my partner. That's it. We were running this entire market by ourselves, 50 properties. And so I went to him and said, I went to one of the owners, met him for breakfast here in Park City, and said, listen, this is the thing. This is where we stand, and, hey, I just don't think I can do this anymore. Like, I had literally had a mental breakdown the winter before. I had emotionally, mentally, physically shut down. I was laying in my bed for 2 days, could not move. Finally reached over on my computer and sent an email to these owners and saying, I'm so sorry, but this is it. I can't keep doing this. I just physically could not maintain those hours and the workload that had been dumped on me. And so finally COVID hits in that next March, and it's even worse, as everybody knows. And of course, when you're talking about a ski market, that was just devastating to our market. We had a month left of only basically 3 months that we have for getting revenue in this market. And COVID hits, and then all the phone calls start coming in. And at the time, our COO for the company didn't know anything about our industry, zero. So he was constantly calling me, asking me for help. And so I was trying to herd cats through from Park City all the way into Scottsdale, where the main office was, and, you know, create whatever processes we needed to be able to make it through COVID. So then my hours now were somewhere around 90 to 95 hours a week, trying to make all of this stuff work. And so again, in that moment, I just thought, I can't do this. This is horrible. This is not the way life is supposed to be. I just can't do it. I can't keep going. And so then it occurred to me that the way out of this was to say, you know what, I can do this, but I can't do it in this way. And so I put in my resignation letter on May 15th. And we, you know, mind you, keep in mind that when I got hired, there was never an offer letter. There was never a non-compete. There was never a non-disclosure, nothing. There was nothing in place. And so my partner and I had built these amazing relationships with the owners that we work with here in Park City. And so when they, you know, when we went to this owner and said, hey, listen, what's to stop us from just, you know, basically saying goodbye to you guys and opening our own business. And this particular owner actually looked me in the eye and said, you'll never do it. You can't do this. And in that moment, I think the fire, as many of you know, the fire that women can get, I was like, oh, hell no, you did not say that to me. I 100% will show you that I can do this. And so, like I said, put in my resignation letter, and we called owners and said, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. You have a choice. And 2/3 of the portfolio said, yeah, we're loyal to you guys. And then July 1st, Staylux was born. So that's kind of my story. And I truly believe in the concept that failure, pain, heartache, that is what forges fighters in this life.
100%. Congratulations, by the way, on your company. Good move headhunting all those clients.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I love, so one thing I've liked so far, guys, is so far, if you're going to find a couple themes here, is everybody who's at the front of this stage right now, they could not just tell you about the time that they felt like they couldn't make it without also sharing the fact that they beat it, right? Everybody here in this group has overcome that adversity and that failure. And they decided that they were going to finish the story because they were better than their fear. And they're like, damn it, I'm going to let you know. I'm going to give my short version of one because, you know, of course, I'm up here too. But I've got some cool questions for the moderators, and then we're going to let the audience get involved. By the way, reset before I give you my story. You are in the Airbnb Automated Club, which is an extension of the Airbnb Automated YouTube channel. I'm Sean Rakidzich, your host, and you're listening to some awesome moderators. We are streaming live to YouTube right now, so over 120,000 subscribers have the opportunity to listen in if they don't have iPhones on YouTube live streaming as we speak, and this will later become a podcast. So all of you moderators, thank you so much for giving value here because the world is just eating it right up. You should see the comments on YouTube right now. They love your stories. So keep tuning in. If you want to get involved, you have something to share, you can join Clubhouse, get in this room right now, and we're going to allow you to raise your hands and talk about failure or fear or overcoming it. So my story for you guys, one of the many times in my life that I was just looking at a situation like, I can't handle this, right? This is too much for me. I was freshly out of my career. I became a salesperson selling newspaper subscriptions in grocery stores. You know, a kid waving around a free newspaper. Hey, here's a free paper, and then I try to sell you a subscription. I got into sales management. I failed at that because I wasn't really a leader. I was a sales guy. They demoted me. I quit. I started my own marketing company. The marketing company I started, I ended up working for a company called the Houston Botox Center, and they had this teeth whitening thing where you sat in a chair and they whitened your teeth. And I'm like, hey, I've got an idea. I can make this something that we can sell in the city so you don't have to do it inside of your office. Let's go around the city and do like pop-up demos and promos. So this guy was almost a mentor to me. I guess even evil people can become mentors, like a mentor nemesis type. And so my direct boss was a guy who made a ton of money in the cell phone boom, just made a ton of money. And so he's on the back end of his ton of money. He made a lot of financial mistakes, and so now he's running this office with his wife. And so for about 3 or 4 months, I am selling what I have designated to be at-home teeth whitening kits, where I did this demonstration, like I was at Walgreens showing people how to whiten their teeth. And he was paying me by check over the course of like weeks and weeks and weeks. And at the end of it, right, where it all fell apart, he had written me 3 different checks because he was late to pay me, and then he wrote me 3 different checks, for about $10,000 in total for these 3 checks. He did tell me a story nearly 6 months ago about how he used to kite checks by tampering with checks, like punching holes in the electric like router. Like the ink at the bottom of a check is like made with like magnetic ink, and he would tamper with the magnetic ink so that way a check would go through and look normal, but then a week or 10 days later it would reverse, or it gives you time to fund the bank with actual money. Well, what he did to me was he gave me 3 bogus checks that cleared my bank account initially, and so I had about $3,000 in my bank account. You know, I was like, I'm a business owner, right? And then all 3 checks reversed, and my bank account was negative like $6,000. And I had already been like on the verge of going broke because of the sales job that I had, became a sales manager. I was given an override off of a team that I was doing a terrible job of building. So I'm sitting there in this green Mazda MPV van with a van full of teeth whitening kits that we were buying from China for like $5, $6 a piece, and a negative $6,000 bank account, and the guy just ghosted. And so what I essentially had to do, my credit score was shot, by the way. I couldn't get merchant services at my bank. I could not charge credit cards myself if I wanted to because my credit was just so trash. So I started a bank account under a DBA, same DBA as the company that I was selling for, so I could take checks because I was taking cash, check, and card. I called a friend from college. I'm like, hey, he was like my best friend in college. I'm like, hey, let's start a bank account where you use your credit for like merchant services, and I'll pay you like $7 for every person we charge a credit card for, right? So he became my tier 2 credit credit card processor. And then I had to grind my way out where, you know, I was collecting cash to eat, right? And anytime that I got a check from a customer or a credit card from a customer, that money went into my negative $6,000 bank account. And then I was trying to collect $40, $50, $80 a day in cash if I could, so that way I could pay for gas and food. I was actually so broke that I ended up defaulting on my lease. I went homeless in the process, living out of the van, and I was like stealing bagels from Randall's like in Houston because I had such little money sometimes that the only way for me to eat was to steal from a grocery store in that 4 months that I was homeless. Eventually the grind was, you know, hustle, make a little bit of money here or there, and I eventually got out of being negative with Chase Bank, and I still use Chase Bank for my businesses to this day, and I have the debit card that says Just Smile in my wallet at all times. So I kept that bank account open kind of in memoriam of the fact that it was like that I had a terribly negative personal bank account with Chase, and this new one that I started for my business with the DBA was what got me through. And I still keep that bank account as a way to say, hey, I made it. So that's my, you know, failure story. And so the segue, guys, really what I want to ask all of you is, because obviously we all got through our failures, right? I want to know, any moderators, you can, you know, flash your mics if you want to talk about this. How has failure and your like going through it, whether or not you overcame it, but how has bumping into failure throughout your professional career, how has that materially changed who you are as a person? Norman, hit it.
I mean, personally, for me, it's the lessons that are learned from failure, and it's also the emotions that, you know, I associate with it. And I kind of tell myself, like, dude, I never want to feel that way again, just because like I felt like it's not a good feeling, you know. At least for me, I can't speak for everybody else, but like it's not a good feeling. And so like when I run into situations where like I'm getting those similar vibes, like I kind of get into like that fight or flight mode. Especially like when it comes to work, like, you know, I've been in situations where like you, you know, you're in debt, you have like bills and situations and stuff to pay, and like that instinct kind of just kicks in, especially like when you're in a business kind of situation to where it's like, no, we got to figure out how to like make this deal happen. So I mean, for me personally, like it's affected me in a sense of like I have not necessarily an emotional response, but like the gravity of like certain situations is significantly higher for me, just because I've experienced something similar before, and like it forces you to like really like focus in on the details and like really like remember every little thing to the best of your ability that's associated with like whatever's in front of you.
Yeah, for sure. It becomes more real the next time too, because you know, like as you go through failures, like you can get so close to ruin that it's such a loud stimulus. It's almost like weight training, right? The heavier the load, the better the growth. And your next time around, you're like, I know what it feels like to be near failure. I'm not even playing this time, right? Is what I kind of got from what you were saying. So thanks for sharing. Eric.
Yeah, much like yourself, Sean, you said that you don't have a lot of partners or you own everything. One of the things that, when I was working for companies in the past, I was always promised like some type of senior position or ownership in company and things like that. And, when I was going from the transition of, trying to start my own thing, I just realized, I don't have a lot of partners. I do invest with my brother that has an arbitrage company, but that's more because we're blood brothers, so it's a little different. But yeah, that's one of the things that really changed my mindset, is that I don't give up much of any of my stuff to anybody.
Yeah, you learned the hard way, right? From a company you worked for, that giving people too much influence or control can come crashing down really, really bad. So, actually, I haven't told a story about the reason why I don't have partners. By the way, Eric, I'm shopping around for a new place, and I just toured a penthouse that I might move into where your brother has 40 units in the same building. So if I move into this unit, I'm going to be spying on your brother big time. So watch out.
I'll tell him that. That's funny.
Yeah, I'm not going to let him know which building. So guys, the reason why I don't have partners, right? I got to see my mentor when I was a kid fail big time. It was a judgment error on his part. So I grew up in Wisconsin, and I was in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program because my parents were divorced. And because of that, I ended up with this guy named Rodney as my placement, and he was a small business owner. He brought on this accountant lady, she did all of his bookkeeping, but he gave her way too much control. And this one day, she wrote herself a $35,000 check, cleared out the bank account, and disappeared. And it almost ruined his business. He had to take out a loan. And he was a mold remediation specialist, right? He was one of the most certified people in mold, fire, and water in the country. But his inability to see that he gave somebody too much power pretty much destroyed his business, and he had to fight his way out. And so because of him, I've never, ever partnered with anybody on a business, because I don't want somebody else having that much control. And it took me years in my business to finally give Haley power of the pen. So Haley can write checks, but she's been through every integrity check I can think of before I gave her that checkbook. So, it was a big thing. Guys, next question. So failure has materially changed how we look at ourselves and how we look at the work that we do. So now, for any of you moderators that want to share, have you developed any super philosophies about failure, about fear, about blaming yourself, about control over your life or destiny? Have you developed any philosophies that you think the audience would benefit from hearing?
Yeah, I do have a philosophy for this.
Thank you.
Pavlina here for everyone listening on YouTube as well. I have a channel there. I was just checking your YouTube, Sean. So yeah, my philosophy, and I do this on YouTube every year, I'm going to be more consistent on YouTube, is that if you don't learn the lesson, then the pattern is going to repeat until you learn it and until you grow. So my life philosophy around failure is that there is a lesson in every failure for me to grow. Either to grow spiritually, either to grow as a person, as an entrepreneur, in any area of my life. What can I learn? How can I grow? It could be even, how can I clear subconscious beliefs and programming that has created this, things like that. Go really deep and find out, why am I creating this experience? And I find out that if I don't learn the lesson, I go and repeat the same experience. So there's a lesson in everything to grow, to become better. If you learn the lesson the first time, you're not going to repeat that experience again. You grow, you have better relationships, better business cooperations, you're smarter, you grow on so many levels. So I write down my lessons for me, and then I go and do videos about them as well. So and then I post them on YouTube, end of the year. So lessons learned. I always do lessons learned for the year. And I did one for the decade, actually. It's only on my Instagram. Last year, in 2020, I did one for the decade. And I realized how much I had grown and how many things I learned. So learn the lesson, and through that experience, through that failure, you grow. You always become a better, and you kind of attract better experiences. Otherwise, you repeat them. You repeat the same mistakes until you learn.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. 100% true. And everybody, I guess we're going to go check out Pavlina's YouTube videos because she's got more to share on this topic, which is nice. Any of the other moderators, anybody up here has any philosophies that they want to share?
You know, I don't know that it's a philosophy per se, Sean, but you know, so much of my life I feel just based on my upbringing, I was just the core family that I come from, my nuclear family that I come from, there was a lot of kind of teaching based on fear. And it was something that really affected me as I moved through my adult life. And I mean, you know, I'm not afraid to say I'm 47 years old. I have 3 adult children. I've been through 2 marriages. Like, there's been, like, just from the 2 marriages, there's plenty of failure there. And so much of what has happened throughout my life has either created fear or have been created by fear. So choices that I've made, things that I've chosen not to do, has been ruled by the concept of fear. And so that's one of the things that I spend a lot of times like self-talking in order to, like what Pavlina was saying about the false negative beliefs, that sort of thing. And so the one thing that I kind of just keep close to my, in the back of my mind, what I keep in the back of my mind is when I feel those, you know, feelings of anxiety, feelings of fear, whatever it is that tell me, oh, you really shouldn't do this. This is so outside of your comfort zone. This is just going to be too much. This is going to be too hard for you. You need to just shrink away and not address this. Is that whole, and I'm sure that probably everybody up here has heard that, but the whole acronym of fear being that it is false evidence appearing real. I keep that very close to my heart and my mind, because in those moments I can say that over and over again. This is false evidence appearing real. This is not real. This is just my fear talking, and I'm greater than that. And so I don't know that that's necessarily a super philosophy based on failure or anything like that, but that's just something that has worked really, really well for me. I mean, I've actually struggled with serious anxiety through the vast majority of my life. And so that's one of those things that just helps to push me past that marker, that line in the sand, so to speak, where it's just like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. You know, whatever it is, that false evidence that keeps, you know, rattling around in your brain, it's not real. It's not real. And it's something that we can all overcome.
100%. I actually forgot that acronym. I heard it somewhere and I've forgotten it. So thank you for that. That was awesome. I know that Mac and Norman had some things that they wanted to share. Go for it, Mac.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Heather and Pavlina, for sharing that. I noticed when I look back, you know, some things I think I hear you say, Sean, and I think Ellie as well. I don't know about other people here, but just, you know, having, like, I noticed a lot of us travel. So that is one thing that helps build into my lifestyle that I always wanted. Plus, I've hired a personal trainer the last 3 years, although I haven't always gone to this personal trainer. But I always just feel that, you know, using the money that I'm working for, you know, it's best spent on that. So then when I go home, I have a 2-year-old that I didn't have when I first started my company. So, you know, I started a company 5 years ago, and now that I went through that situation with regulations and, you know, now COVID, I realized that I need to be there for my family more. And so I have to go back to the things that I enjoy doing, which is me time, meaning being in the gym. I was always pretty, I played sports, but we can't play sports at this age where we'll tear our ACL and then screw ourselves over, so we can't really do a lot of work. So I mean, I'm basically saying that making sure that you know how to build that into your schedule throughout the year, you know how to have fun. You know, you might get lost along the way, and I, for example, spent a lot of the 2020 drinking. I came from the wine industry where my dad was the winemaker, and I literally bartered for everything I did. So I didn't get health insurance. I bartered with the dentist who loved wine, and I kind of just lived this lifestyle of previously that was kind of like my dad. I don't know, it's a long story, but anyway, I forgot where I was headed with that. Essentially, I pivoted and finally was able to make some money in this industry and use that money for the things that I enjoy, which was, I guess, the point of travel and having a trainer. And now I just love being a dad, and now that's like the chapter that I'm in. And so I want my daughter to also see that and know that that's like she's also going to be an entrepreneur, but time will come. But yeah, she's going to travel with me, and I'm going to take her on walks and runs and all that stuff. So I don't know if that's kind of the question, but as an entrepreneur, that's all I think what we all really want, and to also have the money to kind of like be comfortable. So it takes a long time though. I didn't ever imagine being in this position. Like I said, already had 2 years of like losing my first, what I thought was my baby, the business. But now I like shifted, my philosophy into learning about all that we went through from you guys here in Clubhouse. Like I've learned so much, and kind of how to practice like speaking and sharing this information. But I don't know if I answered the question correctly, but
no, I think it connects. The story that you share, like what I just pulled from you, and I'm going to recap it, see if it hits, is you see a stark difference between who you are now and how you were when you didn't do as good of a job addressing your challenges. And one, you made better life habits, and you've changed essentially what it means, right? To kind of go through your day where you're focused on learning and improving, and you've got like a purpose that is more solid than before. And you've got just better life habits all around that make you more of a solid person, harder to knock over. That's kind of what I got from that.
Yeah, it was just like I realized that alcohol, for example, was one thing. It's another subject. But, I in high school was kind of something I developed and a habit of. And so I think starting in January, I just literally cut out drinking. And I think that's been a way for me to push myself forward so that's just another topic. But anyway, thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sean, if I could make just one little quick comment on that. I think that's a really amazing concept that he just brought forward, and it really resonated with me in the sense that, after being, a mom, and my kids are in their 20s now, right? And so after spending so much time being a mom and then going through this whole thing with, working and all these different things that happened within this, the transformation that I've had into going into this industry and then opening my own business, I think what he touched on was really important, because this, as you know, Sean, this can be all encompassing. When you start as an entrepreneur and you did make that decision, once that decision is made, you've just almost handed your life over to this new business, right? And so I think that's really an important part of making sure that you're whole and showing up for not only your business but yourself. And so I would add on that, piggyback on that, for the first time in my life, I'm actually doing things for Heather. Like, I legit am about to head to my once a week hair appointment that I don't even wash my own hair anymore. I have somebody else do it for me because I'm just that way. You know what I mean? It's like at some point you just have to start giving to yourself and making sure that you're showing up for yourself, because if you don't, then you're not going to be showing up for your business either. And so, at some point, as you go through these struggles, you learn that is a necessary part of making your entrepreneurial journey work for you.
I totally missed that, and you're dead on right? If you're not doing things for you, if you're not building yourself up, if you don't have self-care, if you don't value yourself and not committed to that, then how could you love or fight for someone else, right? That's totally true. You got to put yourself first, and you got to make it worth the fight, right? Fighting, and that's the whole learned helplessness thing, right? And I will probably talk on this in a second, but learned helplessness is that I'm not going to get past this, I can't beat it, so then you become docile, and you just sit there weak and just let the world roll over you because I can't fight the world, I've got no reason to try anymore. And learned helplessness becomes the way that the soul can survive knowing that it's never going to be free ever again, which is a really sad position to be in. But like you guys just alluded to, like if you value yourself, believe in yourself, you put effort into yourself, you make it worth the fight, you're never going to give up fighting. You will never end up helpless because you're just that person that has the reason to show up every day. So that's what I just got from you two. I really appreciate that because I really like that. I'm actually gonna take that, put that in my pocket, and move forward with that. So thank you for sharing. I want to give Ellie the chance to say hi. She jumped in a little bit late. Ellie's also a professional in the same space that we are. We're not talking about Airbnb specifically here today or starting a short-term rental business, but we're talking about what it means to be a business owner, to work for yourself, to go at it alone, using failure, leveraging failure, having a better relationship with it. So Ellie, I'm going to give you kind of like a dealer's choice on this. We introduced everybody by asking them to recount a time where they felt like they weren't going to make it, but we've talked about other things, and right now we're talking about like having philosophies around failure or self-blame or fear. So take your pick. You can introduce yourself and just share in either category. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This subject is like everyday question. It's like a constant, I look to the past to understand the future. And one of the times that I thought I wasn't going to make it was I was burnt out running 125 properties across the country. I had no back-end system organized. I had no systems of scale. I had no technology integration. I was like managing all the emails for the guests. I was hiring people. I was organizing like chaos in the back end. I was doing, handling clients, handling new leads. I was running the ship for this company as director of operations. And I was burnt out. They asked me to start doing some commercial raising for syndication. And I was just like, and I said yes to everything. And I was just like this shell of a person that I was. And also a mother of 2 children. And I had just relocated from DC to take on more of this role. I asked my boss, I was like, hey, can I have a raise or maybe like a position, like an equity position? And he was like, no. He just kept rejecting it over and over because, well, he was greedy. He didn't realize the value of the person that he had. So I asked him again on Saturday. He said no. I invited him again on Sunday. He said no. And on Monday, I quit. I had nothing in my contract that said I had to be there. And I had 2 children under 4. I was so scared. I was like, what am I going to do? This is my livelihood. I'm in a new city. I don't know anyone. So there was this development project being built next door. And I walked over to the development and I was like, I convinced the owner to let me manage his properties in the property management model. Brand new development right in the middle of Old Town. And totally gorgeous, 3-level units. He took it, he decided to let me manage it. I created a logo and a company that week, and that was Home Slice Days. And then from there, we grew from 0 to 40 in 1 year. And at the end of the year, we're closing on a $7.5 million hotel. So I was like, holy crap, I can do this. And in that time, there was a lot of positioning myself to be in the forefront because coming from the restaurant industry, working my way up from a dishwashing position to chef, I was very meek and I didn't command attention. I didn't command it because I felt like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't ready. All this self-deprecation, talk that I kept telling myself, maybe someone will recognize me. Maybe, my time is later. And I ended up overqualifying for some roles. Right, overqualifying for some things throughout that experience. And I was always in the background, just like no one saw me. I just created the magic and no one saw me. And I love that context because it's the same now, with the guests, they don't realize who's behind Home Slice. I don't really necessarily want them to. That's why my title is creativist. I don't want to be this whole stigma behind chief executive officer. I think titles are ridiculous. Really, it's about the confidence that you can instill in other people. You radiate love, you radiate values, you radiate appreciation, you radiate generosity. And I think that's missing from a lot of, these relationships nowadays. So anyways, going back to the thing that also happened is during the raise for the $7.5 million hotel, the man that I was seeing, because I got a divorce and that whole process of kind of cycling myself, he left me a month pregnant. So I had my daughter during a pandemic, and my company had lost a ton of money. I had to like take care of my team. I had to like apply for all this funding, and we made it. And now we're on the other side of that, and I look back and I go, well, if I can get through that, then I can fucking get through anything. Like, I'm not afraid of anything. And a lot of that is conditioning myself now. Like, I'm at the gym every day. I've got a schedule. I read. I take time for myself. I have great relationships. I don't drink like crazy. I'm here and I'm inspiring other people who think maybe there's this level of hesitation. Like, don't hesitate. Don't overthink it. Sometimes, just do it. And my dad had this expression when he was a Green Beret: shoot first and ask questions later. Really, quite frankly. Like, you may miss the shot. You're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so, yeah, I mean, I hope that imparts some wisdom and some idea about who I am, and hopefully it can inspire you to take action and hopefully, be brave.
Yeah, that was great. So you changed. The dealing with the failures, dealing with the pressure, the burnout, and having to fight for yourself. That's one of the main reasons why you're no longer that meek person anymore. Is what it sounds like. You've transformed through your failure. Well,
I think that it's called something called. So there's somebody said this the other day. He was like, he's really well known. It's called when you're introverted and then there's extroverted. There's people that are now ambiverted. I'm an ambiverted individual. I know what it takes to. I'm an introverted by nature, but I know what it takes to turn on the extrovertedness in order to associate, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I may not, be as extroverted and get all of the stuff out as possible all the time. Like, I don't like going out into big groups. I don't like, doing a lot of things that extroverted people like to do. But I know what it takes in order to engage and connect with people. And that's really important.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That was awesome. You definitely, you're hanging and banging with the stories just like with the rest of us. It's been super fun. I want to create an opportunity for people to take a look at who they're actually listening to. So let me reset the room. But while I reset the room, guys, if you're in Clubhouse listening to this right now, feel free to start tapping on some faces. Read people's bios. The moderators that you're listening to, they know me because they're professionals either in media or in real estate or short-term rentals. But as you can tell, these people are worth knowing for far more than just their expertise in some textbook area of like life. Like, sure, they can teach you how to make money in the thing that they know about or the things that they know about, but like, if you're gonna follow people and you're gonna keep people in your circle, and that's what Clubhouse is about, is developing a tribe of people that you can come and you can room with every day, and you can hear what they have to say, you can share your ideas. These are the kind of people you want to follow. Ones that can see a new situation, look you dead in the face and say, you're going to get through this, and here's how we are going to get through this if you want my help, right? These are the types of people you should be listening to. With that said, let me reset the room as you're tapping on some faces. You are in the Airbnb Automated Club, an extension of the YouTube channel, Airbnb Automated. I am your host, Sean Rakidzich. I teach Airbnb, but of course, there's way more to life than just growing an Airbnb business. And so today we're talking about failure forges fighters, essentially how we should evolve ourselves to be cool with failure, to have a better relationship with failure, to grow through failure and make failure our friend. And so we've shared stories about times when we thought we weren't going to make it, philosophies, our own evolution in regards to failure and fear and self-blame. This is being live streamed to YouTube for those of you who do not have an iPhone, and to the 1,000+ people I can see patching in from YouTube. It's great to have you guys. I'm sorry I'm so busy over here not able to text you, comment back. I will go through the comments, I promise. But for those of you up at the stage, you've been really affecting some people on the YouTube side of things. The comments have just been wild, so thank you for your contributions. Tap on these faces, follow these moderators, and let them teach you how to be human, how to be successful, how to start a business, and follow the club, because we're going to be doing way more broad topics, not just digging into Airbnb itself. I would like to take a few minutes to give you something in my brain regarding fear, and then we're going to bring some people up to the stage who want to share. There's something that I learned in college called a locus of control. It's either internal or it's external. And what that means is either you believe that you're in control of your life, or external locus of control means that you believe that the world has control of you. It's like, where do you believe you fall as far as like fatism or destiny? But both of them have a poisonous slope if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself and with fear. So for example, if you have an internal locus of control, right, where you believe that you take charge of your life, you know, and everything's on your shoulders, well, if you're failing and you don't have a positive relationship with yourself or a good philosophy about failure, you're going to say, this is my fault. Everything is my fault. I am a failure, right? And that's a dangerous perspective to have on life. On the other side of that fence, if you have an external locus of control where you see the world having more power than you, then you're failing. You're going to look at the world and go, I just can't make it. The world won't let me succeed. I am a victim, and I will forever be a victim because I don't have the power to transcend. Both of these are negative outlooks on life, and they manifest depending on whether or not you believe the destiny is yours or the destiny is the universe's to give you. And this is why it doesn't matter if something is your fault or not when you're failing, when you're dealing with failure, someone else's failure. A lot of the stories that a lot of these moderators gave you, they talk about how something else happened that was outside of their fear, like their sphere of control, or outside of their sphere of perception. Because, you know, Noble just told you a story about how a company pulled out of a deal. And that wasn't his fault, but maybe Noble learned that you don't just rely on one person to source your money for you. If you got a deal that big, you want to have some redundancy there. Right? Ellie and I both had things like situations where we were too loyal to a company, caused us to burn out. We ultimately failed from burnout, but it was our fault for not self-advocating sooner, right? So either side of this, you can blame the world or you can blame yourself, but it really doesn't matter. You need to have a healthier personal relationship with who you are, because you will fail with the same frequency that we fail. You will go through things just as bad as us, maybe even worse. We are yet to go through the worst parts of our lives. I would say that all of us are relatively young, and the world is a scary, unknown place. And you think that COVID-19 was bad, but just wait till something in the future, right? The worst may be yet to come, which means your best is also yet to come, because you will survive it, or you won't, and then it won't matter if you don't, right? So if you care about pushing forward in life and becoming better, you should be looking forward to these challenges that you're not prepared for. Because the stories that we've told you up here so far, we were not prepared for something, and we said to ourselves, I don't think I'm going to make it. It was bigger than us in the moment, but then we rose to those occasions. We got creative, we adapted, we held ourselves accountable, we materially changed and learned from it, and then became stronger than we were before. So failure is the catalyst for change in this case. And if you don't listen to those vibrations, like I'm at my lowest because I feel so hard on myself because of failure that happened to me or that I was responsible for. If you don't allow that catalytic environment to change you, then the failure was that you didn't change, right? The failure was that you were unwilling to move when you had the greatest opportunity to grow. Right? That is the true failure here. It's not actually what happened to you. It wasn't COVID or that you ran out of money or you picked the wrong business partner. It's that you were sitting in the bottom, right? You were sitting at your lowest version of yourself and you couldn't change. That's the failure here. So I want you guys to really dig deep and start to forgive yourself or forgive the world for times that you didn't handle failure effectively, or that the world gave you something that you didn't think you could handle. I'm not going to judge anyone for having an internal or external locus of control here, but I will tell you that no matter which side of the fence you're on, it is still your job to have a healthy mindset so that way you can go through those things and change. I would like to invite any of the moderators to jump in if you have anything else that you want to say to the audience on that topic about taking it head on. And I will also allow people raise hands if you have a story you want to share. We're actually going to stop streaming to YouTube now because the camera's about to die. But we will continue this on Clubhouse. So if you're on YouTube and you can get on Clubhouse, now is the time to do it. And the link for this room is actually in the YouTube bio. So those of you on YouTube, farewell for now. I will see you on the other side. Let's allow some hand raising and moderators to keep talking about teaching people to work through fear. Let's go for it.
Hey, Sean, one of the things, I hope you